obviously there are no other English filmmakers like Michael Powell and Emeric Pressburger, because they had a powerful sense of not just English culture, but an almost mythic feel for English history as a living entity. I mean, for the land, for England, and all the stories and poems and legends that grew out of it.
They have a body of work that is one of the strongest in film. And it's funny because they don't seem to be discussed that much, but their movies are discussed. And that, to me, is the whole point.
I have gone on and on about A Matter of Life and Death. Powell and Pressburger's crowning achievement. I mean, they made things like Black Narcissus and Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, and I know where I'm going, but A Matter of Life and Death is the film which really captures everyone's imagination.
When we first saw these films, like Red Shoes or A Matter of Life and Death, which was retitled Stairway to Heaven in America because right after the war, they didn't want to use the word death in the title. The interesting thing was that we had never seen a credit like this. Written, produced, and directed by Michael Powell and Emeric Pressburger. And so myself and my friends, when we started to realize we all liked these films, we knew that there was something special going on, and we sort of sought each other out. And we said, oh, you like that one too? And yeah, and I found out not only it was a range of people from Francis Coppola to Steven Spielberg, all of us. We knew of David Lean, we knew of Carol Reed, we knew of course, the great Hitchcock coming out of the 1930s out of England. But who were Powell and Pressburger? They were a mystery to us. And why did they take a credit like that on one card? And what did they do? How did they divide up the writing and the producing and directing? So in a way, it became kind of mythical. At one point, we even thought that maybe there were pseudonyms for other people in the industry because there's nothing written about them. Nothing. This was like rediscovering a whole treasure of cinema that was coming out of England, a whole way of visual storytelling.
So that staircase,
yeah,
they built it, and they didn't just build 10 stairs and keep sort of shooting the same 10 stairs. So 266 steps, 85 tons. Then there's these little things. When Niven falls out of the plane, when he washes up on the beach, Cardiff wanted to give that a slightly different quality, so he blew on the lens.
Right.
Yeah,
but,
so it's just his breath, but
yeah.
It's so great. Yeah.
Their films were incredibly efficiently made. They cost nothing compared with what a movie today costs. They only took one take, usually, unless there was something wrong with the camera or the actor screwed up. But if you did, that would make Michael very angry.
Alfred Hitchcock suggested Kim Hunter to Powell and Pressburger because she was behind the camera reading for Spellbound. And Hitchcock was so impressed with her that he mentioned her to Powell and Pressburger.
Well, a bizarre connection. There's a 2001 connection in this movie because they consulted, when they were showing Space, they consulted Arthur C. Clarke.
When I was in England, I said hello to a man named Michael Kaplan, who was working with Stanley Kubrick at the time. I mentioned, I kept saying, who's this Michael Powell? And he says, oh, I know him very well. It was all sort of came together, you see. And he said, would you like to meet him? And I said, yeah. And so we met him in a restaurant and talked about his films that day and told him that he had this following in America. He was always moved later, too, during the 70s and 80s, by the rediscovery of his pictures later in life. A Matter of Life and Death is an audacious film. It takes chances. It's funny. The unique thing about the picture is it's based on a true story of a pilot who fell out of a plane, landed in the ocean, and lived. But it's shot and presented like a fantasy. You're literally seeing what could be considered a very lavish, spectacular fantasy film.
When American distributors wanted to change the title of this film from A Matter of Life and Death to Stairway to Heaven because they didn't think American audiences would go see a film with death in the title, Michael and Emeric were very upset. They said, but we have all of us just survived a war with the greatest and most fanatical power in the world and won it. In the last 12 years, 16 million human lives have been sacrificed to overthrow one man and his lunatic ideas. The words life and death are just facts.
Don't forget, right after the war, the primary trend in film at that time was very realistic war films, soldiers coming back from war, and the real emergence of film noir, total fate, tripping up the characters. Characters are doomed from the beginning. But this went against the grain of all of that.
It's a very unconventional, weird kind of film that you know, I think stays with you. You could say that it's kind of an over-the-top situation, But, you know, I challenge you not to be riveted by it and to be, like, ready to go anywhere the film wants to take you from there.
I have seen A Matter of Life and Death in a number of different ways. I've done 35mm screenings of it in Cornwall and in Belfast. I've seen it on a DVD. I've seen it on a mobile phone. I've watched it on an aeroplane. I have seen it in every conceivable format. And I have to say, I seriously think that any version of A Matter of Life and Death stands up as one of the greatest movies ever made. Why? Because the story works so well. It's a story which balances the cosmic and the personal, something which is otherworldly and something which is utterly down to earth. Every time I see that film, it leaves me in floods of tears, but it also makes me joyous and happy. And it's inspired so much. I mean, think about it. There's a Pet Shop Boys video for Go West, which is inspired by A Matter of Life and Death. The title inspired the title of a Wallace and Gromit film. There's even that very famous Big Train sketch, which takes a moment from A Matter of Life and Death and works with it wonderfully. It somehow managed to work its way into the popular consciousness. And the reason is because you believe in those characters, you believe in that story, you believe in the philosophical ideas.
Michael had no fear of death himself. He considered it a continuum of life. Michael wanted to show in this film that love often involves sacrifice, and that sacrifice is about love.
There were many filmmakers, you know, who responded to the war, of course, at that time, but Powell Pressburger did very passionate work during that time. It was propaganda, but in the best sense, in that their love for the people and the culture of England, both of which were in great danger at the time, ran so deep in those pictures made during the war years. What's so remarkable to me is that the films aren't simply uncritical, laudatory portraits of grace under pressure. You can feel a sense of renewal along with the danger. And the renewal, of course, is really the power behind A Matter of Life and Death, which is also a lament for the dead, all the young men who'd been killed.